All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am Yvonne Denome, and I am the Title I and CARES Act manager. I'd like to begin today by having the CARES Act grants team introducing themselves that are on the meeting with us.
Morning.
Sabrina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'll go ahead. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sabrina Boyd. I'm the Grants Compliance Officer in the Office of the Comptroller.
Thank you, Sabrina. Maddie, I see you're on the call.
Hi, I'm Maddie Knorr. I'm a budget analyst in the Office of Budget Services.
And Sandy Grimes team, might you introduce yourselves?
Yes. Good morning. I'm Doris Manyfield. I'm on the financial support team. So happy to be here this morning.
And Doris, you might have to adjust your camera so that we're able to see you.
Okay,
there you go.
A little better?
Perfect. Thank you. Heidi, I see you're on the call today as well.
I am. Good morning, everybody. I'm Heidi Parsons. I'm on the financial support team.
And anyone else from financial services? All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to start off. I got a few emails this week asking about the asset tag being provided a status update. So I just want to let everyone know that as of today, I'm still on hold with the asset tags. There are still items that are in process of being moved from the CARES Act funds to the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And as soon as I get confirmation from the comptroller's office that those items have been moved, and then verify with Sabrina and Tiffany of exactly what charges remained in CARES Act, then we will be able to start sending back out the asset tags. Please know that I have all of your emails where you have sent me an email saying, Yvonne, I have saved my inventory form to my school folder. So know that as soon as I get that green light, the asset tags will go into the pony, and I will reply to all of those emails letting you know that your asset tags are in the pony. So I'm hopeful that the week of February 15th is when the asset tags will go out to you. I also had an email from a school that has a broken hand sanitizer dispenser. And so she was asking about what that process was. So I just want to revisit that. I want to make sure that all schools are following the FCPS disposal process. We know that that process is really for items over $5,000, but because these are federal funds, we have to make sure that we're meeting the requirements and that somebody knows and has approved those items to be disposed. So in this case, it was a hand sanitizer dispenser that fell off the wall and broke. So what the school was advised to do, and what I'm asking everyone to do, is to send an email to a member of the grants team to let them know the item is no longer operational. Do I have your permission to move forward with the disposal process? Once you have that approval, please save a copy of that approval in the CARES Act or in your school folder on the CARES Act server, and then go back into your inventory form and make a note that the item is broken or is non-operational, and the date that you are disposing it should be the date that you had approval. So those are my two big updates for today. Sandy, I see you're on the call. Do you have any additional updates for us?
You had mentioned, I just want to make sure that people know this is not CARES Act grant funding, but for the ADA monitors, because questions keep coming up. We have heard from HR and the powers that be that the ADA classroom monitors can serve as proctors for WIDA testing, but not administration. They can participate and be paid for professional development. And monitors may join online classes to observe and begin building relationships. So they can be paid, but it's out of the monitor funding, not out of CARES Act grant funding. I want to make that clear distinction that it's a separate pot of money that they're allowing you, because they want to make sure we have these monitors in place and that we can keep them. So that's kind of what they're allowing for that. We are continuing to try to update and make sure everybody's getting their forms in and signed, and there are questions, but at this point we're putting out there. It's a matter of trying to get it. So schools are following up. We're following up with schools to make sure that we have proper documentation. So please continue to work with us.
Thank you, Sandy. Sabrina, any updates from your team?
None right now.
Okay. And Maddie, any updates from the budget perspective?
No updates.
All right, awesome. What questions might you have for us?
Or that Amazon
Feel free to post those in the chat or by raising your hand. It has actually been, for the most part, a pretty calm week. This week, just a lot of verification. I've been providing support to schools on making sure that the descriptions on the HR 11s and the descriptions on the FS 174, that the language is the same to prevent any paperwork from having to be redone. So I appreciate your proactiveness in running that by either myself or a member of Sandy's team. So Tasha, I'm looking at your comment. So Tasha, at this time, the CARES Act funds that have currently been allocated to schools cannot be used for transportation. My wondering is this another pot of CARES funds? Sabrina, might you know anything about that? My wondering is if this is the third wave of funding that follows CARES, but it's the CRRS funds.
Nothing has come to my attention about this yet.
Okay. So Sabrina, I'm going to ask that you take that question back so that we can provide a response in our CARES Act office hours. Thank you, Tasha, for always giving us a heads up.
No
about
problem.
things.
And it could well be that our admin just misunderstood. They heard, CARES intervention, and then there was talk about buses, and they may have just merged those two. Of course, it would be wonderful if there were special funding to cover buses so that we could do either evening or Saturday programs. But I assume that we could probably use some Title I dollars for that.
Yes, you definitely could utilize Title I dollars for that, Tasha. My recommendation would be let us investigate this. I know with the return to school being approved by the school board unanimously, that there are discussions at leadership about intervention opportunities. So I just heard this morning in a Title I team meeting, our director indicated that there is a team working through what intervention offerings might be available. So I would encourage us to pause on that, because if there is operating funding made available for that, Tasha, I want to make sure that Glen Forest doesn't get into a supplement, not supplant concern with utilizing Title I funding first.
Okie dokie.
No.
No.
Since the FS needs to be approved by the principal and it should be submitted by the
Well,
completing
that's that,
staff member.
No FS 174 for classroom monitors. They have to have their HR 11s that they keep, but no, the PARS forms are for CARES Act grant funding, not for the classroom monitor funding that you guys have.
Correct. Colleen, your question, since the FS 174 needs to be approved by the principal, when should it be submitted by the completing staff member in order for hours to be entered into my time? So we know that my time hours should be entered on at a minimum on a bi-weekly basis. However, the FS 174 is a monthly document. So the FS 174 should be submitted at the end of every month for the principal to sign. And so we know that there's a little bit of difference between the bi-weekly and the monthly time submission. Great question, Colleen. Are there any specific school scenarios that you are wanting to know? Might this be available or eligible against CARES? I know that feedback that I've been receiving from the AAs when they call is it really helps to talk through some of the school-specific scenarios. So if someone's willing to put themselves or their school out there, we're happy to work through those as well. Do we have a deadline on using CARES funds? My principal asked this morning. Cindy, as of right now, it's my understanding the June 30th, 2021 deadline is still in place. However, Sabrina, has any decisions been made from the comptroller's office to extend the deadline to allow CARES Act funding to be utilized for summer remediation or intervention?
That decision is not coming out of the comptroller's office. It's coming from the leadership team. But so as it stands right now, the comptroller is operating under the original direction we received, that it should be used by June 30th of this year, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for confirming that. We do know that there is discussion underway about that. Again, I think that goes back to what I had indicated previously with Tasha's question about holding until we know for sure, because many decisions will be made quickly now that school is resuming.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha, I'm sorry, Tracy, could you review again how the file should be named in the school folder? Sandy, can I pass that baton or do you want me to cover it?
Well, let me go, and I have put this out in my weekly emails to schools. We need the naming convention to say CARES Act. It depends on what you're putting out there. Is it a journal entry? Is it your documentation for your time? I want to make sure let me pull up my email that I sent to you guys. We need you to put in your naming convention. Hold on, and let me pull it up, and I want to make sure that I give you the latest. So you can piggyback with me, Yvonne, while I'm looking for this, but you have to have the month that for the time where the person's time hits. We have to know in the naming convention, CARES Act, what are they working for, the name, and I did send that information in a weekly email. I'm looking for it. The month using the naming convention should be the month the expenditures hit your CARES Act grant, not the months the hours were worked or the shopping cart was created. For example, if an employee worked in November, but their charges didn't get input into the system until December, then December would be the month used in the naming convention. The backup is used to support the charge to the grant. When naming a folder or file with the month and year, please put the month and year first. Example of a JE backup, December 2020 CARES Act JE, and include the JE number. Example of a file name for hourly charges, November 2020 CARES Act, John Smith, whoever it's for. So it is important that we have that information so that we know the month, because when an auditor looks at that information, we need to be able to match that up with where the expenditures hit and make sure we have the file documentation. I hope I answered that sufficiently. But that was the latest and greatest that was sent out in our weekly email.
So definitely starting with the month is critical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting with the month, making sure we have the description and who it's for. And some people are putting the whole everybody together because you have, so let's say you had 10 people working for the month, okay? If we can see it and you name it hourly teacher funding, or you put December hourly teacher, and you scan them all together, and we can go down the list and see that we've got all the PARS forms for each employee that worked. We're not going to give you a hard time about that. It's clear, we can see it in the file. But we have people out there that are having trouble scanning stuff, and some of them are scanning them in the folder and scanning each one in the folder by month, so you have each name in the folder. As long as you've got all the documentation in that folder and you have it named for the month that the expenditure is hitting, and we can see it and still go down the list, it doesn't have to be scanned the same way. Am I making sense to you guys? It's got to make sense that we can see it and the documentation is there for that month.
Thank you, Sandy.
I hope that answered your questions, because people are getting caught up in the naming convention. We got to know the month. We got to know it's CARES Act and what it's for. And how you put it in the file, it's got to be out in your CARES Act folder. It's got to be clear what it's for, and doing it by month is going to be the easiest way for us to see we have it all there for the month. But that's why we're including the month in the naming convention.
I think Tracy is clear on that. So I'm going to move to Anita's question. Can staff members sign the FS 174 electronically? So I'm going to preface this with saying we need, when possible, to have an actual signature. It doesn't have to be the wet signature, but it needs to be the teacher's signature. When the only flexibility there is to that, to sign electronically, is when a teacher may have access to do a signature using their keypad or using their mouse. If they can convert that PDF electronically and do an edit on it that allows them to either sign it using their mouse pad or touchpad or using their mouse, then that signature we can utilize. Otherwise,